What's the state of NASCAR on TV? Like the average viewership per race is down by more than half of what it was, say, 10 years ago. Is that something that's concerning to the sport?
Well, I think it absolutely is concerning. It always is. I think it was more concerning when it was dropping. It is definitely down. When we came on in the 2015, 2016, I'm not a big ratings guy, but so let's say there were, I don't know, 4 or 5 million on average. Now there's say 2.5, 3 million on average. These are
Yeah.
real generic numbers, depending on networks and time of days, and you get it.
Yep.
So the concern, though, the decline was more concerning than the new floor, right? Because
Okay.
we've been very consistent now. Fox had a really good first half. We had a really good second half. We're hoping for a big championship weekend. It's hard because it's right against the gorilla in sports. It's right up against the NFL and college football, right? It's right in the middle of that season. But I think the decline was concerning, but now that it's flattened out, now it's allowed everybody to say, okay, if this is the viewership, what does that look like for scheduling and planning and talent and production budgets? And, I think now we have the ability to deliver the correct broadcast for the number of viewers we have. And there's been some really big highlights. We did that Chicago street course and it got a monster rating, which is fine. My bosses would hate me, but I'm not a TV rating guy. If you tune in, I'm going to tell you this stuff. How you tune in is not really my deal, right? That's somebody else. That's marketing or whatever.
Of
More
course.
importantly for me, the weather couldn't have been worse. I mean, I think it rained inches in Chicago and it was electric. We brought racing into an urban setting and it was, I'm going to get the percentage wrong now, so don't quote me, but I don't know, 80, like some remarkable number were first time ticket holders. Those are the things that excite me because I'm confident we could keep going back to the same venues forever and be the same forever. But the fact that, this NASCAR brass is not afraid a couple times a year to put us into a different area. And I think that's what excites me. And that's what kind of in my mind has stopped the decline and flattened out. And I think we're getting ready to go the other way. I really believe it has a lot of potential.
Does NASCAR and does NBC help NASCAR to reach younger demographics and younger sports fans to kind of try to develop those fans, because the younger demos do consume everything quickly and in short clips, so like it doesn't necessarily fit to sitting down and watching a 3-hour broadcast.
Yeah, every year what I'm asked to do is different, right? I always broadcast the race, but then what else? Right? It's not really a 30-minute, like we don't do a 30-minute daily show every day anymore like we did 7 or 8 years ago. Now it is more this, right? Like when you said, hey man, we use a StreamYard link, or I'm like, oh, I know what StreamYard is.
Yeah.
Like, during COVID, I have, you name it. I can get to links, every video thing. I apologize. Now I'm all backlit here because my son is coming up out here in Phoenix. But, to your point, we are now asked to do more casual things like this. Like it doesn't have to be suit and tie, go to the booth. I mean, that Sunday is important, but if we have a big announcement, or last year when Ross Chastain rode the wall at 160 miles an hour and everyone's head kind of exploded, it was the craziest thing we'd ever seen. We get right online and we interact with the people online. I love it because back to the crowd I'm talking to. My son is at college and in a fraternity. They're really my sense of the younger crowd. Like a couple weeks ago, we were in Miami for the playoff race, and he texts me, not about the race. Dad, the Grimace and Hamburglar car is awesome. And I'm like, I take a breath and I give 2311 credit, right? They have a Grimace car and a Hamburglar car. And I laugh, but that matters, right? I'm like, here is a college kid. All the kids in the frat love it. It's so awesome. So on the broadcast, so I get the producer. I'm like, hey, I know you're gonna think I'm crazy, but the frat kids think the Hamburglar and the Grimace car is great. So let's give them, today during the race, this was kind of pre-race. I'm like, let's give them a couple minutes of, so easy to get sucked into the nuts and bolts of racing. But I'm like, let's give the kids what they want to see. Let's show the Hamburglar car, show Grimace walking around pit road, like lean into it, make it fun.
Last year, the average baseball game was 3 hours and 6 minutes. I think the average NASCAR race is 3 hours and 8 minutes. And then baseball went and they made drastic changes, despite some initial pushback from a lot of their fans. But they were able to cut it down to 2 hours and 42 minutes this season. And the changes ultimately were were pretty well received. Is there something that NASCAR can or should do to shorten the races or broadcasts?
I think every time the schedule comes out, you see more condensed races. Now, I think we have to have some Mount Rushmore of 4-hour grinding events because that is the history of the sport. So I equate racing a lot to golf because it's kind of the same, right? While there are teams, it's kind of a singular player going against a singular player. It's the same idea. And you see golf trying to find either shorter events or different ways to kind of deliver it. So I think NASCAR is the same way. I think like that Chicago street course I mentioned, that was going to be a 2 hour and 15 minute, probably a little less if it runs on time with no weather and everything. So I think the answer is yes. And as long as we don't forget who we are and where we came from, I applaud it.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is the Daytona 500 is 500. And I'm okay if it takes 4 hours because I think we need it. We need it for the history, for the list of people that have so I'm not a fan of the extra game in the NFL, right? I didn't need more NFL.
Yeah.
And it took all my records, and now I'm like doing math. And well, is this a great year anymore? Like 1,000-yard year, is that the same as 1,000-yard year was? Or no, I know it's continued to expand. I get it, but in my window of life, this was a big change for me. I'm like, oh man, this was a lot. I wasn't ready for that. So I'm great with NASCAR tweaking as long as we hold a couple things like the Coke 600. It's long, man. I mean long, 4 hours plus. But we have to have a 600.
Yeah.
Like I think Memorial Day weekend, that's it. That caps it off. You start in Formula One, you have Indianapolis 500 at noon, and then you roll off to the Coke 600, right? So, yes, I think the shorter type thing, the qualifying shows have been adjusted. Everything you're talking about, I think is real.